271. This evening is Monday, June 26th. It is 7:00 p.m. Please, all board members are present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before approving the agenda, I would like to make a motion to establish a closed session upon the conclusion of tonight's board meeting for the purpose of continuing superintendent evaluation. Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So at the conclusion of this evening's agenda, we will continue our discussion regarding superintendent evaluation. And can I get an approval, a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion about tonight's agenda? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And that will bring us to recognition of students, staff, and public. And what I would like to do now is ask for a moment of silence in honor of those students and staff lost during this past school year. So please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Is there anybody here who would like to address the school board on a matter not on tonight's agenda? No? Seeing none come forward, we will move along to Part A of our agenda. Part A includes board business, meeting minutes, personnel items, field trip approvals, contracts, agreements, and finance. Can I get a motion to accept Part A as presented here?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? One item of discussion that I just wanted to throw out there so people are aware I had the conversation. Some of our contracts for BCCA do mention a cancellation portion of it, and some of them will say things in the essence of 60 days before the semester begins. I did have a conversation with our assistant superintendent about those contingency plans. What if a contract should end in the middle of a semester? And they do have contingency plans in place for that. So as we were going through that, I just wanted to note that I had asked that question and had received a response from Assistant Superintendent Melby. So all those in favor of Part A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we will approve Part A as written. Now that will bring us to Part B. And that's the first item on Part B, if I'm doing this correctly, is approval and ratification of the 2017-19 negotiated contract. Director Bergstrom, you have this one for us?
I do. Be it resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves and ratifies the 2017-2019 negotiated contract between Independent School District 271 and the Bloomington Federation of Teachers.
Second.
And we'll have our Assistant Superintendent, Eric Melby, with this one. What can you tell us about this contract?
Chair Oliva, Superintendent Fujitaki, members of the board, I'm really happy to be sitting before you here tonight and talking about the tentative agreement on the master agreement for the teachers for the next 2 years. Really what I want to do here is thank folks and recognize the hard work that went into it. I first want to thank previous teams on both sides of the table for all their work that had been done in prior contracts, because what that did was set up a really, good contract, a strong contract. And that made our work manageable, I think, this time around in terms of language issues and things like that. There wasn't a ton of heavy lifting to do there. So I want to thank folks who have worked on these contracts over time, because we've got a really good contract and language in the contract in Bloomington. Secondly, I wanted to call out really both teams who worked on this agreement this time around. The BFT team of folks who met with us, included Jeff Bunkert. And I should point out that Jeff and Wendy's out of the country, and Jeff is likely on water somewhere because of the time of the year. And Brian Ingeman was the co-lead negotiator on the district side of the table, and he's got commitments tonight too. So that's why I'm sitting up here alone to share this with you this evening. And I would like to have the opportunity to come back in August with some of the folks that did serve on the negotiations team to give you a little more in-depth on answering any questions you might have about the process. And let those guys give their opinions on how the process goes, so it's not just Eric Melby's opinion on that. That being said, I do want to thank the folks who served on the team. So Jeff Bunkert was the lead negotiator for the BFT team. Others on that team included Josh Koval, Matt Wise, Jessica Rice. New team member this time around, Jeff Zupfer from Normandale Hills. Wendy Marchek, of course, and Eric Herman from Ed, Minnesota. And then on the district side was Brian Ingeman, who I just mentioned, Rod Zivkovich, Carol Kampa from Kennedy. Director Bergstrom served on the team, and we had some assistance from Greg Madsen, who's an attorney with Kennedy Graven through the process. So I just want to publicly call out all those folks and thank them for the work that they put into the process. In that process, we had 2 full days of hard work. Everybody agreed to some norms when we started those 2 full days, and everybody followed those norms, which was great. So it was nice, positive, respectful conversations that happened. And really, I want to thank everybody for being prepared for those 2 days, because I think folks did their homework and came into the days so we didn't have to spend a lot of time kind of finishing our homework during the day. We knew what we were going to talk about. We had answers to questions, and that helped move the process along. I tend to sometimes look at things through rose-colored glasses, so I have a sense of optimism going into next year, partly due to having this contract settled. But I did check with folks out in the buildings to see if I was alone in my optimism. And I think we ended the year on a positive note in Bloomington, and I think that people are enjoying their time away this summer, but also looking forward to the next school year. Having a contract completed will be part of that, looking forward to it, but a bunch of other work going on in the district. Some of the results that Dr. Heist is going to share with you tonight, I think will, add to people's excitement as they come back in the fall. So the board has received the draft version of the TA last week. You've seen some of those highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the process or about the tentative agreement, and I've got folks over here who may help me out if there's questions I need help with. So that's what I've got.
Sure. Any questions? We'll open it up. Any comments? Okay. Director Bergstrom?
Yeah, yes, well, first of all, I want to echo Assistant Superintendent's comments. Being on the team this year was a learning process for me. I had been on custodial transportation as the rotation worked out for the last 2 contracts, and we switched it up, and I was able to be on the teacher negotiation team this year. This worked the way I think things should work. We had a dozen adults around the table, and we hammered it out and got it done. I'd love to take the lion's share of credit for it, but I think the opposite is true, as I'm there just to observe and report. My input is nominal at best. But I did have the opportunity to see how this worked, and it really worked well. I know there were conversations, some sidebar conversations. Every little bit helps. But this particular model that I was able to witness, I think worked really, really well. So very, very pleased with the way this went. I do want to add one caveat. I think people are probably waiting to hear that particular piece come from me. Since as a board member I don't have line item veto opportunity, I can't pick apart any particular contracts. This particular contract and the ones that we're going to vote on tonight exceed my personal safety zone with respect to affordability. The component that I'm nervous about is the long-term sustainability. It's not, can we afford it now? I want to keep everybody as long as we can. And so my issue is with long-term sustainability, has absolutely nothing to do with the people that were at the table or any of the employees throughout the district. So when we get around to the votes, I think what I'm talking about now, hopefully you'll understand.
Anybody else? Director Sorm?
Mr. Melby, I guess there's one item in there, the moving of the licensed school nurses to the teacher master agreement. I just needed some clarification on that. The rest of the health associates are still in their own bargaining group.
Correct.
But
Yep,
a
the lic-
distinction is being made.
The distinction was already being made, but the licensed school nurses were on a sort of a modified teacher contract with a community ed component to it, which we decided to just, they're licensed school nurses, MD licensed, and that was a move we decided to make.
Thank you.
So just a comment, no questions really, but this is the third teacher contract that I've had the pleasure of voting on as a board member, and I'd say this one is my favorite. Really for two reasons. One is that we were able to reach an agreement before the current contract ended, which I think should be our goal for every negotiation. And the second is that we're finally moving the early learning teachers, preschool teachers onto the schedule, which is something that I wanted to see happen since before I was even a board member. So I was glad that we're finally able to make that happen. So really, there's, lots of thanks to the district and to the teachers and the whole negotiating team for giving us this good contract here. So thank you.
Great.
So I'll just, oh, you didn't raise your hand?
Now or when voting?
I guess to add my 2 cents, thank you for all the hard work. You can pass that on to the other
Will do.
11 members that you had there. I guess if I were king, there are things that I would do differently, but as a board member, I see it as, we gave a parameter, you stayed within the parameter. There are certain things that I could have gone either way on, but in the end, I think that, I can appreciate the work that was done and the expediency that it was done with, so just want to throw that out there. Thanks for your work. And so I believe now we've come to vote, and do you have to abstain?
Yes, I am going to.
So do you want to make that clarification now, or?
Should I just do it when we
As we
come
go through?
around?
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll do a roll call vote.
That's fine.
We'll start on this end.
Start with a no.
I'm sorry, I was just joking that you could start an S at one time, so,
It'll be-
so I vote yes.
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 And I am abstaining because, like in previous years, my husband is a teacher in the district, so I will abstain.
My vote is no.
Thank you. Passes. And that will then bring us to approval of the 2015-17 negotiated contract with Health Services.
Mr. Chair. Be it resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the 2015-17 negotiated contract between the school district and the Health Services BFT Local 1182.
Second?
Okay, and I will bring to the table Executive Director of Human Resources, Mary Burrows.
Jeez. Okay, Chair Oliva, Superintendent Fujitaki, and members of the school board, I'm bringing forward several contracts tonight for you, and I think I'll skip saying the titles every time because we all know who we are. But this first one is the 15-17 Health Services contract. It fell in board parameter for this contract cycle for the 15-17 contracts. It included a 1.5% increase to the 15-16 and 16-17 schedule. We also increased license certification stipends both years. Our district contribution to health insurance equals the LMC recommendation at the time in the insurance committee, and the board had already previously approved that. Other changes occurred due to the IRS deductible, because we have a high deductible plan changing. And those things were adjusted throughout the contract. We updated sick leave language up to Minnesota statute 181.9414. And we added some military leave language, although we were already following that. And then housekeeping changes. So there weren't a lot of changes to point out in this contract, and we recommend approval.
Is there any comments? Questions? Okay, so we'll start over on this end. with Director Bergstrom.
Start down yonder. My vote is no.
Yes.
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 Thank you. And we'll come up to the next one, 1719 contract.
And this again is for the health services, 1719, so there's two contracts back to back. This contract included a 2% increase to schedule both years. We did increase license certification stipends both years. We did do some longevity changes, 10 and 15 year one, and then all longevity levels increased slightly the second year. And then the rest are BORE, Insurance Committee and LMC recommendation as far as health insurance and housekeeping changes.
Does anyone read that one?
I'll read the resolution. Be resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the 2017-19 negotiated contract between the school district and the Health Services BFT Local 1182.
Second.
So are there any comments or questions? I'd just like to say thank you very much for getting this one done so quickly as well. So we talked about the teacher contract being done. I figure we should congratulate this group as well.
Well done.
So thank you. So I guess we'll vote. We'll start over here with Director Steigoff.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay. And if I'm keeping track, that brings us to approval of the 2017-19 Community Ed Independent Hourly Employee Wage and Benefit Plan.
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District Number 271 approves the 2017-2019 Community Education Independent Hourly Employees Wage and Benefit Plan.
Second.
Okay, highlights to this plan. Again, 2% increase each year to salary schedules. We did housekeeping changes. We changed the deductibles again to meet the IRS guidelines and the agreements that have already been reached in the insurance committee. We also clarified hardship, HSA hardship advanced language. That was the other thing that we did in this contract. Other than that, the changes were minimal.
Any questions or comments? No? We'll start with Director Bergstrom.
No?
Yes.
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 And that brings us then to 2017-19 Salary and Benefit Plan.
Mr. Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School Districts Number 271 approves the 2017-19 Salary and Benefit Plan for independent salaried employees.
Second.
Can you tell us about this one?
Okay, this is pretty much exactly the same as the previous one. So 2% increase to salary schedule both years of the contract. Changes due to the IRS deductibles changing and limits changing to the health insurance plan that were previously approved by the board. Clarified hardship advance language and housekeeping changes. So,
Any questions? I have one. It's, because I see that we're changing HSAs per IRS. So what happens if they change it in the middle? The contract would automatically have to reflect any changes that they made if it were
we wait till the plan year
in the plan year?
change, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Director Steigoff?
There's always a grace period when they make those changes in the
Sure.
federal to allow for
Allow
that
for
type
the-
of, yeah,
Okay.
change.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay. And that brings us to employment agreement extending the probationary period of a teacher.
Mr. Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the employment agreement between the district and probationary teacher Shelley Harris, extending her probationary period.
Second.
This is an individual, like I've brought previously to the board, that is tenured in another district, has already completed one long call year with us. She's in an assignment that's having a second year long call, and she would like to continue on to do it, but she can't unless she waives her rights because she's not really a tenured teacher in Bloomington. So that's why the agreement's coming forward to allow her to continue on in the second year of her long-haul assignment.
Any questions? I think we've seen these a few times, so. All those in, this one, we don't have to do roll call, I believe. Unless someone's going to vote no, so we'll try it and see what happens. All those in favor of passing this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And then that brings us to number 7 here, District Achievement Report. Thank you, Ms. Burrows.
Chair Oliva, Superintendent Fujitaki, Board Directors, I'm pleased to bring the first installment of the District-wide Achievement Report, which includes very positive information about the MAP test, the measures of academic progress. This assessment is used to really look at productivity. How productive are we in terms of growing students from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? We use tests in first grade and second grade in fall and spring, and then from third grade all the way to ninth grade, we compare the previous spring to this last spring. And so we have the first graph is reading by grade level, and you can see that every grade level showed an increase in the percentage of students hitting their growth targets. So the national average is 50, and so we were hoping that we would have at least 50% of the students in each grade level hit their growth targets. And in this case, every single grade level did. And in ninth grade, we were up to 64%. This is the first year that ninth graders took the MAP test, so growth from 8th to ninth grade was very strong. And you can see that in 7th grade, we were at 49%. We went up to 58%, which is an extremely large increase in 1 year. So across the board, we have strong results for reading. Then what we do is we break it out by different racial ethnic groups, and free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and special ed. We can see here when you disaggregate the data by race that our white American students are the students that made the largest increase of about 6.3%, from 57.2 to 63.5. But our African-American students increased by about 2, Hispanic a little less than 1, Asian by 3, American Indian by a little more than 2, and overall, again, a 4-point increase, which is quite substantial in 1 year. If you have a 1-point increase, you're doing well. If you get a 4-point increase, it's very strong results. Our special ed students, 50% of the special ed students hit their growth targets. The only group that stayed about the same was EL, English language learners. They were at 47.2 last year and 47 this year. And then we further break out our EL students and our non-EL students within each of the categories of Asian, Hispanic, African American, and special ed. And here you can see that the non-EL Asian students increased almost 5 points, but the EL students also showed a small increase of 0.1. When you're over 50%, that's what we were shooting for, was to at least hit the 50% category, and the Asian EL did. Hispanic EL students, however, were relative less strong. The 43.1% of Hispanic EL students hit their growth targets compared to 55% of the Hispanic non-EL. So that is our area of of concern in these data for reading is that Hispanic EL students did not make the same kind of growth as other groups of students. African American EL students had almost, well, 3.5-point increase. Non-EL also increased. So our Eastern African students did extremely well, and our Western African students also did extremely well. In special ed, you can see that our non-EL special ed, again, 50.5% hit their growth targets, and special ed students who are also EL really tend to struggle, and this year there was a 7-point decrease, so 31% of those students. So overall, quite strong growth in reading, with a concern for our EL population, especially Hispanic EL. When we look at the math growth, we again see strong evidence of growth. Overall, we went from 54.2 to 58% of the students hitting their growth targets. In sixth grade, we're still below that magic 50% line, but the students did increase from 44.4 to 46.8. Grade 5 had a very large increase of 7 points. Grade 3 had an increase of almost 11 points, which is really a strong increase. So across the board, except for grade 6 where they're a little below 50%, we had very strong results in terms of the amount of growth in mathematics. When we look at it disaggregated by racial ethnic group, we see that American Indian students, I didn't put the N in there, but it's a relatively small number. They decreased from 60 to about 50%. Asian students increased by 3. Hispanics down a half a point. African American students up 2. And white students, again, had the greatest growth, up 6 points. So in terms of gap reduction, if you look at the difference between white and students of color, we actually saw an increase in the gap with white students making that kind of growth. Free and reduced lunch students were up a point. EL was up 0.2, and special ed was at 43.5, down a little bit from the last year. But overall, again, a 4-point increase for all students in mathematics. And then we have the breakout by EL versus non-EL within racial ethnic groups. And you see that the non-EL Asians were up over 60%, with 60.8% hitting their growth targets. The Asian EL students were 68.9, so extremely nice growth. Hispanic EL students, again, were down about 3 points, whereas Hispanic non-EL students were up 1.4. African American EL students were up 4.5, and non-EL students were up about 1.5. So special ed students did show a decline for non-EL and a slight increase for EL. So overall, the picture on this evaluation of the productivity, the amount of learning that takes place during the year showed a remarkable increase in both math and reading. We have a QComp goal for the district as well as each of the schools. The goal was to increase reading growth by 3%, and we had a 4% increase. So we did hit that goal, and most of the schools hit their goals as well. Here's a separate breakout for reading just for the grades 1 through 5, and you can see there was a 3.3% increase. For middle school, there was a little less than 1% because grade 6 was a little bit lower. But overall, these are very positive results. I'll come back in August, and I'll have full results from the MCA assessment and also some diagnostics to look and see if students at the top of the distribution made as much growth as students at the bottom of the distribution. And then we'll have some breakout of the various areas of mathematics and reading. But I'm glad to take any questions at this time.
Sure, Director Sorrell?
Sure, while, Dr. Heiser, while that slide is up, when it talks about the grade, the numbers, is that just those who took it?
So that would be the number of students who took the test this spring and also had a test score from last spring. So students who come in the middle of the year will be tested, but we can't measure growth on them because we don't have a pretest.
Okay, but then there's still some that opt out?
There are opt-outs. We had very few opt-outs out of the MAP test. We had considerably more opt-outs out of the MCA. And we'll have a total of that for the August presentation. I'm thinking it's going to be less than 100, but quite a bit more than we had last year. So we do have a few people that opt out of the MAP, and they tend to be, parents will say the student has test anxiety is the most frequent reason. But because the MAP is an adaptive test, and if students are below grade level, the test adapts to their level of reading ability. So a special needs student in 5th grade who may be reading at a 1st grade level will actually get 1st grade items. And a student in 5th grade who's reading at a 10th grade level will get 10th grade items. So it'll be very challenging for the gifted students. They won't be bored with the test, and yet it will adapt to students who are below grade level. And that's not true with the MCA, and that is also another reason why more people end up opting out of the MCA. Thanks for the question.
Okay, just, so the, otherwise, we always use an average of about 750 to 800 students per grade. You know, so that's when there's variation in the numbers. So if we were to look at the 6th graders in 2014-15, then follow that group into 2015-16, and then to go back and follow them in the 8th grade. So
Yep.
longitudinal study a little
Yeah.
bit that way.
You could,
There was a difference.
Yeah. Especially in districts that don't have any mobility or very little. That analysis makes a lot of sense, but we have enough mobility, so you say, well, oh, okay, it looks like that group went down to 49 in 7th grade. Now they're back up to 58th here in 8th grade. That is one way of looking at the data, just eyeballing it. But it's nice that we can actually do continuous enrollment for multiple years. One of the graphs I'm going to bring to the board in August will show the students that are enrolled from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade, show those most, stable students versus the kids that come in late or leave early. And then I'll do a little bit more analysis to identify strengths in that area.
So there are various factors that enter into this that
Yes, mobility
draw
is
any
a
conclusion
factor.
from that.
But we compare ourselves to a national norm of students who are continuous enrolled. So the comparison group is the same group as we have. And they don't have separate norms for special ed or EL, so we can't really compare to a national norm, but we just use the 50% as kind of a benchmark that we'd like to see everybody hit.
Thank you.
Director Bergstrom?
Thanks for coming, David. I always enjoy your presentations. The question I had is, so it's on my page 2, looks like probably slide 4. It's the district-wide map reading growth by ethnic ELL in year. It's the special ed, it's the second to the last column.
Yes.
It looks like it went from 38.1 last year to 31.3 this year. Just curious if we have any information on what we can learn from that?
Yeah, the students that are special, I'm sorry, I was trying to find that exact graph that you had. The students who are both special ed, have special education needs and also English language learners tend to struggle in mathematics and reading. 34.4 to 36.8, there was a little bit of an increase in the math, but that's considerably lower than any other group. I was surprised to see that there are 114 students that are both in special ed and English language learners. So that's a large percentage of the population. So they have to meet the definition for learning disabled or one of the other areas of special ed. So they tend to be students that are really struggling in terms of low growth in reading. We could at some point have, our special ed and EL directors maybe talk a little bit about the kind of programming that we have for those students. I have a background in special ed, but not so much in ELL, but I found that some of those students in Minneapolis were students from refugee situations where there's a lot of trauma and that kind of thing. So, I'm guessing that there would be some of that with these students as well.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, Dr. Dave, there's cases when, there are times when students move from one school district to the next one, and in the school district where they were at, let's say that there's a student that is in 5th grade, but the actual level is 2nd grade, right? And so that student gets moved to another school district or to our school district, and then gets placed in that 5th grade or 6th grade, but the level is still behind. And if the student is lucky, then the student will have a teacher that will kind of help him, kind of go forward
Get an
and jump
instruction,
into,
yes.
different. But if the student is not very lucky, then we'll continue to just move from one year to the next year and still be way, way behind at a lower level. So we might have students here that are, when we look at each grade, might be at a specific grade, but the actual level is way behind, if that's the case. Is there a way for us or for you with all the skills you have to kind of find out, if we have those type of cases in Bloomington, and how many of those cases have been actually been able to bump into the next level or go 3 levels up within the same year, and compare here and say, those students actually did this well in the math test?
Yeah, I hear your question. It's especially a concern with students that are highly mobile, that have been in multiple districts over their period of time. We had some students, that had been in 5 different districts during their elementary school time in Minneapolis. So these students tend to have other things going on. The homeless, we can break out homeless, and that's something I can do for the August report too. In general, the way I approach it is I look at the students at the bottom 20% of the distribution. These would be students that are below grade level, and see if they're making at least a year's growth. And then students up at the 80th percentile, there are top group of students, and see if they're making growth. And what I like to see is that all 3 of the lines are parallel and moving up. Sometimes you'll see in a district that all the success is taking place at that top group, and that the bottom group is either plateaued or even going down. And I do that for all the schools too. So this 2020 analysis is one of the more diagnostic analyses that I'll do for the August report. So I have the district 2020 analysis, and then each one of the schools. And I can do a separate analysis of students that have come in from other districts. I haven't done that in my tenure here in Bloomington, but we have enough movement in from other districts so we could look and see how those students are doing. So thank you for the question. It'll give me a little work
Well,
something to work on this
Yeah,
summer.
it's just concerning to see the ELL
Yes.
Latino that
Yes.
doesn't seem to
Yeah.
have that much of growth.
Yeah.
So I wonder if any of that information would be helpful at all for the
Yes.
students, for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
teachers, you
Yeah.
know, for the administration, for the
Yeah.
program itself.
And the teachers are all trained in differentiated instruction.
Right.
We have a really, I think, robust model of what they call multi-tier system of supports. So each school will have a problem-solving team that will identify those students that are below grade level and need to make progress. But that is a really important component. And what makes it so difficult for teachers is the wide range of ability level within their classroom. They might have, like you say, reading at the first grade level all the way to reading at the 10th grade level in one fifth grade class. But I think we're fortunate to have a very strong teaching staff that seems to be making good progress with different groups of students. And then I'll do that 20 at 20 analysis and see if we're making progress at the bottom as well as the top.
Okay, thank you.
Director Steiger.
I just wanted to actually add a comment to this discussion. Along with what Dr. Heisted said in the teachers, I've attended Data Day at some of our elementaries, and not only did I see the teachers, using tests, looking at their test scores to see which students were struggling and looking at that, but I also saw teachers in the room having a discussion and saying, are there other students in your classroom that you have concerns about that maybe it isn't showing up on the test, or maybe this, and are there other things? So they were looking at multiple ways and trying to make sure that they were, getting every student in their room the help they needed. So I just wanted to add
Yes.
to what I witnessed when I
Yeah,
went to Data
social
Day.
emotional learning as well as
Right.
the academics.
So,
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you back in August.
We'll see you then.
That'll bring us to number 8, cyber risk insurance policy.
Be resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the purchase of cyber risk insurance with the Beasley Breach Response Insurance Company for the period of August 1st, 2017 through October 1st, 2018. The annual premium is $23,281.85 and will be prorated the first year to allow for a 14th-month term to fall in line with our annual October 1 general liability insurance package renewal.
And I'll welcome Rod Zivkovich, our Executive Director of Finance and Support Services.
Chair Oliva, Superintendent Fujitaki, board members. This is something that we've been working on ever since we had the unfortunate event of the breach back in February. We've been working with Kraus Anderson, our consultant, to come up with a plan that best protects the district moving forward regarding any cyber breaches within the organization.
Any questions?
So this is for employees for their protection, or is it just for the district for their protection, or both, or?
It's for both protections. It's to make sure that if something happens in the future, we have the resources right off the bat to be able to handle this.
Okay, 'cause I remember when we did it this year, everyone had to go and sign up. So would they have to sign up again, or is this going to continue that one-year
This would be
membership?
completely different. Each event is different. So if there would be an additional breach of some sort, it could be anything within the district, not just employee, but it could be student or the rest. We would have to handle it based on a per-situation basis.
So I think what we were getting at is, so this isn't necessarily an extension of the coverage that, I forget what it is.
No,
Life Alert
this
or
is
Lifeline?
a
'Cause it's
completely
a
separate.
Separate thing, okay.
This is more of the district. It's a, as we had partially before, and we've still kept that coverage of travelers, which protected some breaches. This is more of protecting the district for some of the costs that we had to pay out of pocket for the current breach.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks. And that brings us to number 9, long-term facility maintenance program.
Mr. Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the attached 10-year long-term facility maintenance program budget and authorizes the current amount to be included in the district's long-term facility maintenance projects application for long-term facility maintenance revenue.
Second.
This is kind of starting the next levy process. Back in 2015, legislation changed where districts would have to come to their boards on an annual basis and provide the 10-year plan for all facility deferred maintenance type projects. You'll have your next resolution will be our portion of being in the partnership with 917, their portion that we need to levy for. So it's a process that started back in 2015. It's just making sure that the board is aware of what the district is planning for the next 10 years.
Any questions? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that'll bring us to, I believe we're at Intermediate School District 917, long-term facilities maintenance
Okay,
budget.
Mr. Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves Intermediate School District 917's long-term facility maintenance program budget and authorizing the inclusion of a proportionate share of those projects in the district's application for long-term facility maintenance revenue.
Second.
What can you tell us about this one?
As I mentioned, this is just our portion of the 917. Director Bergstrom, who is a board member of the 917 board, was part of the process with their board approving this resolution on their end. We just need to approve it on our end so that we can levy for those dollars.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That brings us to committed fund balance categories.
Mr. Chair, be it resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the following committed fund balance categories for the 2016-17 fiscal year. 1, third-party medical assistance. 2, wellness dollars. 3, band uniform and instrument replacement. 4, operating referendum. 5, transportation. 6, transportation building. 7, transportation bus purchases. 8, staff development. 9, athletics and activities. 10, Q-Comp, and 11, site department carryover funds.
Second.
This is kind of one of the last things to do of a year. We're kind of talking about 3 different years tonight. The first couple resolutions with the long-term facilities is for the 18-19 school year. This is for the 16-17 school year. Requirements based on GASB 54 is that we have to notify, the board has to approve, I should say, that before the end of the school year of areas that we are going to commit dollars. Once those different funds are set up or different categories have set up, we'll go through the audit, and then in the October, November, December timeframe, when the audit is finalized, those dollar amounts will come to the board, and the board will approve the final audit.
Is this the same list we've had in previous years, or is there anything new on there?
They've been reducing as we spend down fund balance.
So we have less categories?
Yes.
Okay. So that third-party medical assistant that's been on there before?
Yes.
I couldn't remember that one, okay.
Questions? So I was trying to understand this one myself. So 2016, 2017 fiscal year, when does that end?
It
In
ends
like
this
5
Friday.
days? Yeah. And so I guess the part that I'm trying to understand is it seems like we should have had to approve all these last year, and then you spend the money and save the money and put it in the correct funds. So how is it that after the year's done, you say, okay, well, this is what we've committed for last year, or just saying what we're going to commit
It's what
going
we're committing
forward?
for the future.
Okay.
It's
So
not
that's-
committing for the current year, it's committing for 17, 18.
Okay.
But we
Yeah, it
have
could-
to, we have to put categories in place before the end of this year, so then when the audit comes through, those categories are available for the board to commit funds in that area.
Okay, yeah, because I guess why I get confused, because it says approves the following committed funding categories for the 2016-17 fiscal year, but we're approving them to really going for the 17-18 school year.
Right, but what it is for your final year, for the audit,
Okay,
ending fund balances, you're setting up categories for those ending fund balances.
okay.
So we could do this anytime during the fiscal year, is that
Correct.
correct? So is it always, do we always do it in June? Is there a reason why we wait until?
We've
the meeting
always done it
before?
in June, partially because seeing where we are financially after the budget and the rest, there might be categories that get eliminated
Okay.
based on spend down, where we think spend down is and the rest. I mean, if we would have seen that a couple items, like one of the biggest items that we've had for a while on there is the operating referendum one. We set that aside because there was fear at one point in time that when the state was having some financial difficulties, they would take some of our fund balance if we had a higher fund balance. And we set aside our actually operating referendum that the voters gave us that we didn't spend right away. We're pretty much have spent all that, and I would say that, you know, within next year, probably at this time, we might not have that category within the group.
So what categories have we lost over the years? If do you know them off the top of your head?
We had set aside for LCTS, set aside for workers' comp, severance, technology. I think that was kind of some of the bigger categories that we've had over the years.
Okay.
All right, clear as mud. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye, kid, it makes sense. That brings us to number 12 here, I believe, adoption of 2017-18 budgets.
Mr. Chair, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the proposed 2017-18 revenue and expenditure budgets for all funds.
Second?
And what can you tell us about this one?
This is kind of talking about the third year. This was brought to the board at the last board meeting. We gave a detail of all the different budgets. What we showed in that presentation is that we are spending down about $1 million of our fund balance in the general fund this current year. And next year, what is projected for a fund balance spend down is an additional $2.7 million to get us to a fund balance of about a little over 9%. But I think what there was really no change from what the presentation was on 2 weeks ago. We're looking for approval to start the process of the 17-18 school year.
Any questions about this?
Yeah, this is the sad thing to see, because I mean, it's pretty much every category, our fund balances are going to be smaller. They're shrinking, so it's not real fun to look at.
Well, we did ask them to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have to do it, but it's not
No, it's not
I'd like to
fun.
see it go the other way,
Yeah.
for once.
No, we have to.
You're in the wrong business.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at this, I believe we're at, right now, before the spend down, I believe we're at where the fund balance was in, what, like 2009, right?
Yep.
So it was like 2008, 2009, we were at about 12 million, and then it, it came up, and then we said, hey, wait a second, we aren't trying to go to infinity here. We're trying to stay within a range, so start bringing it back, and, so it's been a curve. But yeah, going to, I think what Director Bergstrom had said earlier, long-term sustainability, we're starting to, we asked them to spend it down, and now we're starting to see kind of the end of the road, like, okay, well, unless it starts to turn around, we're gonna have to put the brakes on this a little bit, so.
That was actually when, looking back at things, that's when we had our last operating referendum. Was where the fund balance was at this point.
Okay. So, here's the budget. We saw this 2 weeks ago. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say, oh,
I'm sorry.
sure.
Maybe I'll just add at this point, we had a CFAC meeting, and they also saw it. And so they're apprised of what's going on and how we're working with it as far as the operating referendum and so forth.
That's the finance committee you're saying?
Yeah.
Citizens Finance.
Oh, yeah, there it is, the PowerPoint. Next slide. Okay, so, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to number 13, resolution establishing 2017 school board elections.
Mr. Chair, resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves, 1, November 7, 2017 as the date for a school district general election. 2, there will not be a school district primary election. 3, the terms and conditions for this election attached.
Second.
Okay. And what can you tell us about this one?
This is a resolution that needs to be done for setting up the election. We have 4 school board members that will complete their term at the end of this calendar year. So this is the first process of putting that on the docket for an election in November.
You're going to ask the question? Yeah, the question came up earlier, what happens if we vote no on this? Can we just stay forever? But I think the answer is no. Somebody else would just come in and do the election on our behalf. Is that-
Well, the real purpose of this resolution is to basically allow the city to run the election.
Right.
And we thank them for doing that.
Yes, thank you, city.
And to not have a primary.
Well, it's a
So,
separate.
any other questions? No? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that brings us to.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Rod. School Board Member Ambassador pairings for 2017-18. And so, we had discussed this when in January. This is just, everybody goes through the cycle of all the different locations. Is there any questions? Did anyone see anything on here that they didn't seem right? I think it all makes sense. Everybody just shifts from where they were the previous year.
This will at some point be posted on the website.
I believe so. I believe it's on the school board page, correct? Will be.
And then the schools, well, some of them do, they update their own websites and put
Yes.
the ambassadors on there.
Yeah, who the new people are.
Yeah, are those being updated? Because I do remember seeing like school board members that were not, like former school board members
Yeah.
still in pages
It's
as
I think it's up to
representatives.
the site to each school to maintain their site.
Right.
So if you see that your name should be there, maybe there's usually a contact person, media person there. You
Is
say,
there?
oh, by the way, we switched, in case
Thanks
you
for the
didn't see the memo.
Okay.
So
I just thought Deb did it because she does everything.
she does everything.
She went in there and fixed them all.
So there's nothing to vote on here. This is
No,
what we had
that's what
already
it is.
agreed to, so.
Yeah.
That brings us to board member reports. Who would like to start us off?
Oh,
All right,
Mr. Chair.
Director
I'll go.
Bergstrom.
It's, this one's, Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Here so we attended our last graduation, Metro South adult basic graduation was over at Olson Middle last week, I want to say. It's just absolutely a pleasure to attend the graduation ceremonies. It certainly is, as a board member, it's one thing that I look forward to each and every year. And I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to each and every district employee. It doesn't matter where you work or what you do, I just want to say thank you for another successful year. Without you, without the work that you do, we cannot be successful. So thank you very much for a wonderful year. And that's my report.
Okay, who'd like to go next? Director Storm.
I mentioned earlier that the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee met, and we reviewed a lot of things, and they're all aware, and they've been aware, this committee has been in existence for quite a while, pretty much the same members, and so we meet just as needed basis, and so every time there's an event like a budget or a referendum or anything like that, we always like to include the Citizens Advisory Committee to get their feedback, their understanding, their knowledge of what's going on, and then share with them a lot of our budgetary concerns. So it was another successful meeting, and we appreciate the fact that they are willing to come during the lunch hour and work through some of our budget concerns. I also will mention we had the Superintendent Evaluation Committee meeting, and that there were a couple of technical items that we need to readdress, so that's why the special session tonight.
Like to go next? Anybody? Okay, I guess that'll be my turn. Metro South graduation, I'd like to echo what Director Bergstrom had said. It's always a pleasure to do that one because the stories are so heartwarming from those folks. I believe one of the speakers said she had 10 children. And it was amazing to hear her story on how she got to where she is now and getting her diploma. It's always a pleasure to hear those stories. Principals negotiation, we had our first session this morning. We met for a couple of hours. We will be meeting again, hopefully in August, to finalize a few things. We'll remain cautiously optimistic that one can also get done before the beginning of the school year, but can't promise anything. And, okay, Director Stagoff?
I was just going to say that the custodian and the transportation negotiations will have their first meeting tomorrow also.
Throwing out there, I'll just throw out that the food service, we did our first meeting last week for negotiations. We have another one scheduled in a couple weeks.
Yeah, to then, good luck with your sessions. I was on the clerical, and we met last week 3 times and came to a tentative agreement, so we'll be hearing more about that later.
Right.
I just want to add that last week, we had our first kickoff meeting for the referendum. A lot of my fellow board members were there, some weren't.
You went as a citizen, though, not as a board member, correct?
Correct. But just letting you know, it's getting organized, so hope to see you there next time.
Mr. Chair? Sure. Also, paraprofessional started negotiation last week and will continue to meet next week. No, this week.
This week?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Bring us to the superintendent.
Great, thank you. Great news to report. 3 Bloomington students earned perfect scores on the American College Test, more commonly known as the ACT. 2 Jefferson Juniors, Josh Luth and Adeline Vicuro, and George Thielen, a Kennedy Junior, scored perfect scores. This is an amazing accomplishment. Less than 1/10 of 1% of students taking the test nationally earn a perfect score. And no one can recall ever having more than 2 perfect scores any one year in our district. So congratulations to these 3 students. Some of our elementary students also earned national recognition. There is a national Invest Right essay competition, and students get to invest fictional money in the stock market. They then write an essay about why they invested, how they invested, what the results were, and what they learned. Every year, Mr. Tim Kari, a fifth grade teacher, has his class participate in this competition. And this year, 10 of his students' essays advanced to the national competition against 3,000 other essays. And I'm happy to report that his students, Lyndon Durbin, Gabe Morotz, and Ian Rash, placed 5th, 2nd, and 1st respectively in this national competition in the elementary school division. So congratulations to Ridgeview and these students. Terrific accomplishment. I have some mixed news. Elizabeth Tolzman, the Assistant City Manager, is leaving the city of Bloomington. She's joining the Ramsey County as their Director of Policy and Planning. Her last day will be Friday, July 7th. I want to thank Elizabeth and recognize her on behalf of the school community for all the work that she's done with us and for our entire community. She will be missed, but, you know, she'll go and take her leadership now to another county, and she'll do great things for the state of Minnesota, so we wish her well. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
So one other item for the board is, it is my son Nick's birthday today. He's 10, so happy birthday, baby Nick. I love you. I can still call him that. And on TV, on TV, yes. And he's not watching, it's fine. And so, is there any other items to come before the board this evening? Hearing none, we'll adjourn.
Okay. I will clear them.